Close your eyes. Listen to Monday.com. Feel the sensation of an AI work platform. So flexible and intuitive, it feels like it was built just for you. Now open your eyes, go to Monday.com, start for free, and finally breathe.
Kara here from The Kara Golden Show. If you're not using Ironclad for contracts, you could be leaving millions on the table. Ironclad's AI instantly surfaces what matters: renewal dates, pricing terms, and obligations, so you can act quickly before opportunities slip away. That's why they're trusted by great brands like OpenAI, L'Oreal, Salesforce, and so many others. Find the savings hiding in your contracts at ironcladapp.com/podcast. That's ironcladapp.com/podcast.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace.
Last year, I went through many different life changes. I needed to take a pause and examine how I was feeling in the inside to better show up for the ones who need me to be my best version of myself.
When you're navigating life's changes, Talkspace can help. Talkspace is the #1 rated online therapy, bringing you professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatry providers that you can access anytime, anywhere.
Living a busy life, navigating a long-distance relationship, becoming a first-step father, Talkspace made all of those journeys possible. I could speak with my therapist in the office. I could speak with my therapist in the comfort of my home. I was never alone.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
You know, occasionally we got to start the show and tell you what the big story of the day is, because the rest of the press corps, the media, everybody out there, the other conservative talk show hosts, they've all missed the big story of the day. And this is becoming increasingly my frustration. I like having this show. I'm very blessed to be able to sit behind this microphone and talk to you guys and shoot straight with you as best I can, call out both sides, do balls and strikes, tell you what I think, take your phone calls. And I'm really appalled at the entirety of the press corps, social media, the conservative talk radio and podcast atmosphere stuff for missing the big story today. The big story is not what you've been told. In fact, I got up this morning and I did Mark Halperin for an hour, and we had this conversation. I think he's right. He's the one who pointed out that the morning shows, this was not the lead, and it should have been the lead. But people have gotten bored because it's considered old news, but it's actually very big news. Instead, I mean, there is the tragedy with Savannah Guthrie. The news outlets are covering that as they should. It's a relevant current story, and public help is needed. But most of the American press corps is in outrage mode, and if the president does something that progressives can be outraged by, that's the focus. If the left does something to be outraged by, that's the Fox coverage. Or if they can rally around the president, that's the coverage. The big story today, and I know how many of you are going to be, you're going to roll your eyes when I tell you it's the big story of the day. And it actually is, and I'll defend myself here. The big story of the day is that after Vladimir Putin told Donald Trump that he would pause firing missiles at Ukraine, Mark Rutte, the head of NATO, went to Ukraine. He's one of Donald Trump's favorites, Mark Rutte is. Vladimir Putin unleashed hell on Ukraine, launching missiles, sending fighter jets, massive operation, including in Kyiv, while Mark Rutte was talking to the Ukrainian parliament. The leader of Russia is daring Donald Trump to do anything, and I don't think Donald Trump is in Putin's pocket, but for the life of me, I'm flummoxed by why Donald Trump keeps pulling his punches on Putin when Putin promised to do nothing and then tried to get the General Secretary of NATO killed in a bombing campaign that involved Kyiv. This is root before the Ukrainian parliament.
So it is with the deepest respect that I stand before you today to affirm once again that NATO stands with Ukraine. This was true before Russia's full-scale invasion.
Now, I'm going to pause here because you're hearing someone talking in the background. That's the interpreter. The female voice you're hearing is the interpreter interpreting his English into Ukrainian.
This was true on the 24th of February 2022. And it has been true every single day since. Putin has long thought he could wait us out, that Ukraine was weak, that your supporters would grow weary, that our will would falter. He was gravely mistaken. Ukraine is strong and our support is unwavering. I do recognize that a focus on other global events might have caused concern. Concern that our attention might be divided at a moment that you needed our support more acutely than ever. As the temperatures plummeted, attacks on your energy infrastructure intensified, and the talks to bring this terrible war to a lasting end continued. But I want to assure you that our attention has not been diverted. Ukraine is and will remain essential to our security. And our commitment to supporting Ukraine is steadfast.
That's the General Secretary of NATO and the President of the United States. I want to be real clear here with you. This is part of the problem with how people understand Ukraine. And I'm going to get back to Ukraine because my point here is not really to focus on Ukraine right now, but how the American media is more interested in, while lecturing us on the value of news, they're actually more interested in generating outrage to try to attract your attention. But the situation here in Ukraine is one that the American media never really wanted to grapple with because they would have to criticize Joe Biden. Joe Biden made a lot of promises to Ukraine and then never delivered on those promises. And Donald Trump has actually kept every promise he's made to Ukraine, but he continues to just roll over and let Putin rub his belly. I don't understand what's going on there. I don't. And I don't think he's in Putin's pocket. I don't know what the play is. I think there's division within the White House in the Vance wing and the Rubio wing on how to proceed. And that fight has not been settled to the president's satisfaction. The president of the United States, this president, did something Joe Biden didn't do. Much of what Joe Biden did to Ukraine was structured in loans that ultimately the EU would pay back if Ukraine didn't. But there were a lot of gifts given as well, including to fund the civil service salaries of Ukrainian officials and the like. What Donald Trump has done is he stopped that. And instead, the NATO allies can buy American weapons and give them to Ukraine. So we're making money. We're not lending money. We get the money in advance. Our allies are giving us the money. And the president is also putting pressure on the Europeans to get rid of their dependence on Russia. And you should understand that part of the big problem in Europe is that Gerhard Schroeder, the former chancellor of Germany, was a Russian lackey who wound up working for a Russian energy company after forcing Germany to give up its nuclear power, rapidly getting rid of the nuclear power so they couldn't bring it back online, and then making Germany dependent on the Russian natural gas. It was all part of Gerhard Schroeder's plan to placate the Russians. But what's the big story this morning on CNN and MSNBC? It's the president's statements to Dan Bongino with the return of his podcast yesterday. Bongino, by the way, I've gotten these emails. Bongino is not coming back to radio. He's just doing a podcast. And the president was his first guest for his first day back on his podcast. And the president said he's thinking of a federal election takeover after sending FBI agents to Georgia to get ballots from Fulton County, Georgia. Now, you should know I am dismissive of the Fulton County stuff. There were clearly mistakes made. There always are, and Fulton County is notoriously inept. But many of the stories that have come out thus far claiming to discredit like 300,000 ballots are being greatly distorted by Trump supporters. So, for example, one of the stories is that they found 300,000 fraudulently cast ballots in Fulton County. The number they cited was actually the total number of in-person early voting ballots in Georgia, in Fulton County. And their claim is that because a clerk did not sign off on a ticket after writing down the number of votes, that all of those votes that no one doubts are lawful votes must not be included. So think about this. The position is that 300,000 people must have their lawfully cast ballots thrown out because a single Democratic operative in Fulton County didn't sign a piece of paperwork that's not actually required by law. It's required by a regulation by the Secretary of State. That's the position, is that those 300,000 ballots are unlawfully cast because one Democratic appointee didn't sign a piece of paper. That's a hell of a precedent to set, that a single partisan appointee could throw out an entire election by failing to sign a piece of paper. So now they've pivoted to sending Tulsi Gabbard down to seize a bunch of ballots in Fulton County. They're looking for something. It's like Jack Smith filing so many lawsuits and digging as deep as he can, eventually to find something. That's what they hope to do in this case. Is if you can spend enough time to indict a ham sandwich, they hope to spend enough time to cast doubt on an election that they now can't throw out. You're not suddenly going to un-get Joe Biden elected. This is score settling with the Democrats. It's scratching itches. It's tickling ears. It's the Trump team insisting that they were right all along. We'll see where it goes. The fact that Tulsi Gabbard went to Atlanta, though, and did this is a great distraction from, you're not now talking about ICE in Minnesota. The media is not. The president has the superpower of leading the media towards stories and essentially generating outrage so they're not covering other stuff. Another major story this morning on CNN and on MSNBC, in the New York Times, in the Washington Post, is the president of the United States announcing after July 4th the Kennedy Center is going to be closed for 2 years for renovations. Many of them insist that the reason he's closing the Kennedy Center is because everybody's canceling performances, which isn't true. Some are. But that's the spin this morning, and it is fundamentally dishonest to the viewers and readers of the American media, because the fact of the matter is the Kennedy Center needs serious work done on it. The Kennedy Center is right by the Potomac River. It's in a flooded area. Remember, D.C. is mostly reclaimed swamp. The basements of the Kennedy Center have mold. They've got algae growing. They have damp problems. They're not secured from moisture. They need new moisture barriers. The whole place needs to be renovated. But the media would rather you believe that Trump is doing this because he can't get performances at the Kennedy Center, which simply isn't true. Some have canceled. But they would rather focus on this than this massive story in Ukraine. And there, by the way, there are perfect ties to make that about Donald Trump, but they've moved on from what is the most important story to what story is going to generate the most rage, what is going to generate the most outrage, what is going to generate the most eyeballs. The Western leadership refusing to be able to stand up to Vladimir Putin should be the biggest story of the day, because it's not just us, it's also the European powers as well. The president of Moscow, of Soviet Union, Russia, brain fart here. The president of Russia agrees to not bomb Ukraine and then breaks his promise in less than 24 hours, unleashes hell while the Secretary General of NATO is inside Kyiv talking to the parliament, bombs Kyiv in the process of the Secretary General of NATO talking. That should be the biggest story of the day. But why talk about substantive news when you can generate outrage, when you can get the left worked up about the Kennedy Center or about the president taking over elections? Why do it when you can get the conservatives worked up about Gavin Newsom at Vogue magazine, which is what Fox News has been talking about all day? Why cover the actual substantive news when you can get clicks and generate outrage? About the only news network anymore that actually covers stuff that matters to people is CNBC, and it's business news. It's a deep frustration of mine. You know how many news outlets I have to subscribe to these days to do show prep for the show? Left, right, and center. The massive number of outlets that I've got to get subscriptions to read this stuff, get up in the morning before I go to bed, all the bedtime reading. Now, I'm not complaining about doing the show. Don't get me wrong. It's just... It's astonishing to get up in the morning and see what the headline stories are. Do you know what the big story at the Wall Street Journal is today? The above the fold center story at the Wall Street Journal. It's not the bombing of Ukraine. It has now suddenly been changed to the Coast Guard Special Forces behind the president's key missions. But what was it when people woke up this morning? What was the big story at the Wall Street Journal this morning? Philip sent it to me and said it's a testament to just how slow the news is that the big story at the Wall Street Journal this morning was composting dead people because cemeteries are being overrun. That was the big story. Why? Because at this point, the American media depends on clicks. Clicks depend on getting you agitated about something. And your agitation is profit to the media. It's why so many of you feel so much anxiety in the headlines right now. Because the headlines are designed to generate anxiety. A buddy of mine sent me a text this morning. He won't mind me. I'll keep his name out of it, but he won't mind me saying this. He texted me late this morning and he said, I just have to say this. You're the only one who will understand it because you and I have been in it because of our passion and chosen profession. I've come to realize politics is like a long-time TV drama with all the twists and turns, a never-ending show with season after season of narrative structures, multi-character focus, and core themes from month to month, year to year. Oh, yes, the characters change, and so do the storylines. All of us spectators just choose favorites and wait for a denouement to clear it up. But like my favorite nighttime show, Blacklist, there's no satisfaction, and it just gets boring after years of hoping, praying, and laughing or weeping. That's what the media's done. The narrative structure is more important than the news of the day. It's Days of Our Lives meets the WWE in a weird mashup. The big story of the day today, and it is the biggest story of the day today, is that the president of Russia has yet again broken his word to the president of the United States. And yet again, the president of the United States is choosing to do nothing. But this time is different because one of the president of the United States' favorite people on the planet, the Secretary General of NATO, who the president adores, is in Kyiv as the bombing hell from Russia is unleashed. Don't think that can't change the dynamic. It probably will.
Close your eyes. Listen to Monday.com. Feel the sensation of an AI work platform. So flexible and intuitive, it feels like it was built just for you. Now open your eyes, go to Monday.com, start for free, and finally breathe.
Greetings, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here, just keeping you up to date on this. Actually is a newsy news story that is also one of those sensational stories. Savannah Guthrie's mother appears to be kidnapped. Authorities say blood was found. They don't know. They're trying to find it. They believe it was probably someone who actually knew, had a relationship with the family. All of it, though, is speculation. We don't know. But it is Savannah Guthrie's mother, who has, her name is Nancy Guthrie, not the Christian author, different Nancy Guthrie, lives in Utah, is missing. They're trying to find her. The police are working it as an active crime scene. They don't really know. Also, at 3 o'clock Eastern, as soon as this show is off, Tyler Robinson is going to be in court in Provo, Utah, for a hearing related to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. He's not a Jew. He's not paid by Israel. He's a progressive activist who was pro-transgender. The left, there's a woman on CNN the other day who had to get corrected live on air by one of the lawyers saying, no, that he was not a conservative. That actually this progressive activist claimed that Tyler Robinson was a conservative who killed Charlie Kirk. People just want to believe all sorts of crazy things these days. Here's what I can tell you that you can believe is I'll try to sort through it all for you, make it make sense if nothing else. I also want to tell you about Swiss America. They've been warning people about a secret war on cash. You can call them at 800-289-2646 and get a copy of their report completely free. Their report, The Secret War on Cash, details how the government is trying to steer you away from cash. In fact, I see there's a big lawsuit now against the national parks that have banned cash in the parks because it's operated by the federal government. The government does not like you using cash or gold or silver or crypto. Get this report from Swiss America. It can help you with your retirement and finances. Call or text my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 800-289-2646. That's 800-289-2646. You can also go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, SwissAmerica.com/ERICK. Also, check them out on YouTube. Swiss America Trading is their website, Swiss America Trading. Great, highly informative site with a lot of information about world currencies. Or just call or text my name, Eric, 800-289-2646. Message and data rates may apply.
Close your eyes. Listen to Monday.com. Feel the sensation of an AI work platform. So flexible and intuitive, it feels like it was built just for you. Now open your eyes, go to Monday.com, start for free, and finally breathe.
Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the nation. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, and if you text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, you can get the live stream, the show notes, the podcast, the 4 things to know in the afternoon. By the way, my team's been browbeating me about that. So in the afternoon, when the show is done at 3 o'clock, I do a very short 5 minutes summarizing the 4 big things you need to know before you get home. So if you haven't had time to get the show, almost inevitably it's 4 things that happen at the end of the show. And it really will help you by the time you get home, those 4 things, those breaking news things that happen towards the end of the show, you will be able to figure them out. And it's a separate podcast feed, 4 things to know. You can search for it on your favorite podcast app, or if you text Eric to 33777, you can get the link so that you get the full 3-hour show, but also this 5 minutes of just here are the latest headlines after the show is done. So on your way home, you can listen to that. It takes you 5 minutes and you figure out all the major headlines. Now, have you seen this? This is kind of funny to me. Kathy Griffin, the comedian, is very upset. Let me read you this tweet. Actually, I'm sorry, it's on Threads. She doesn't use Twitter. Okay, coming clean, she says. I just saw when politics is your world, these are the sorts of things that happen. Kathy Griffin, the comedian. Okay, coming clean. I had a driver tonight, didn't know anything about ICE or ICE abductions or the murders. She said she lives under a rock and doesn't watch the news because it's too depressing. Am I being a B word because I think that's as bad as being complicit? So Kathy Griffiths has a driver, an Uber driver. The Uber driver doesn't know anything about ICE or ICE deportations. And apparently, as Kathy Griffin is tweeting all of this stuff, turns out that the driver supports ICE generally. Didn't know ICE was abducting people. Knows what ICE is, supports ICE, doesn't know ICE is bad, doesn't know ICE is deporting people. Now, here's the punchline for all of you. The Uber driver is Argentinian. The Uber driver is from Argentina. A female Uber driver from Argentina who Kathy Griffin thinks is complicit in the bad things happening because this immigrant to the United States doesn't keep up with the headlines. Now, this gets to something I say, and I had a woman who subscribes to my Substack get very upset with me because I continue to talk about Trump supporters and Democrats and normal people. And she's very upset. How can you say I'm not a normal person? And I actually don't mean it as a pejorative, and some people take it that way. This Uber driver, this Argentinian Uber driver, is a normal person. you guys aren't normal. If you're listening to me right now, you're not normal, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, credit to you for listening to me and staying informed, but most Americans, you could call them low information voters, but they're just kind of normal people. They're living their life. Normal people, they're living their life. They're listening to some music. They got their favorite station. Music for them stopped at about the time they were 25, and since then, that's the only music they listen to. I mean, it's like my wife. For my wife, music died after Prince, and basically all good music stopped after 1990. My wife listens to 80s channels. She does not listen to 60s channels. She'll listen to a little bit of 70s, but it is the 80s. From January 1st, 1980 to December 31st, 1989, that is music for my wife. It is what she grew up with. Now, oddly enough for me, I didn't come back to the United States until 1990, and music really didn't begin for me until the early 90s. Nirvana and Pearl Jam and then Foo Fighters, and I like modern rock, alternative. I listen to very modern, bleeding edge stuff. My wife thinks it's appalling. She's like, how can you listen to it? And then I listen to very eclectic music. I mean, I love Drew Holcomb, and I love Pearl Jam, and I love Monsters and Men, all these great stuff. My wife, nope, it is AC/DC. It is ZZ Top. It is Prince. It's the old Michael Jackson stuff, although she's never been a huge Michael Jackson fan. It is Belinda Carlisle. It is the 80s for my wife. And normal people are like that. They hit a certain age, and all music after that age becomes crap. It doesn't matter. And normal people are not listening to guys like me on the radio. That's why I love you guys. That's why I'm not insulting you by saying you're not normal. You're special people who listen to get smarter. Normal people are low information voters. They don't watch the news except the local news. They're not really reading newspapers. They're paying attention to sports. And you know what? Actually, demographically, my radio show, compared to a lot of other conservative radio shows, has a lot of people who tune in for the headlines, what's going on in the world, and then jump back out to ESPN or to Fox Sports or to somewhere else. They're far more concerned about sports. And normal people aren't. They don't care about ICE. They don't care about the supposed ICE deportations or ICE abductions. They just don't care about that stuff. And Kathy Griffin is upset that this is complicity. By being a non-involved person, that's being complicit. But what is a non-involved person? A non-involved person is someone who's actually very involved in the life of their family, the life of their kids, and the life of their work. Kathy Griffin, to my knowledge, is not married and childless, and so she can be all wrapped up into politics. Just what a wild divergence. And into the politics comes a problem for the Trump administration. There are three classes of single-issue voters in the United States that predominate. There are other single-issue voters. You may have an issue on which you vote, and it is your only issue. But there are typically just three, and they represent 4% of the voting population. No, I'm sorry, 3% of the voting population. And they are environmental voters, abortion voters, and gun voters. And those single-issue voters are the least normal among us. And again, I say it lovingly, not insultingly. A Second Amendment voter knows the Second Amendment better than anyone else. An abortion voter that predominates in their views, pro-life in particular. Environmental voters, they lean Democrat. If you're voting on the environment, 9 out of 10 times you're voting Democrat. If you're an abortion voter, you would think it's an even division, but it's really not. Pro-abortion voters tend to be standard Democratic voters. People who are really fired up about the issue are the pro-lifers. They won't even vote for a Republican if the Republican isn't sufficiently pro-life. A pro-abortion Democrat will vote for a Democrat, although there are very few pro-life Democrats out there now, but they'll vote for a Democrat who cares about the abortion issue. The pro-life voters care about the issue. They turn up at every election, and they vote Republican, but you got to get them there. Second Amendment voters are the most hardcore of the single-issue voters. And again, we're talking 3 to 4% of the population overall. But it's a very big deal for Second Amendment voters. And there are actually not very many anti-gun voters in the country. Again, like pro-abortion voters, anti-gun voters tend to be run-of-the-mill Democrats. But the 2A voters, the Second Amendment voters, they are diehard. They support gun rights activists, and they will not show up if you are not good on guns. And for the life of me, the president's team is like Kathy Griffin right now. They are so involved in the politics of what's happening with the president's agenda right now, and they think that that's the thing that matters, and they're alienating the single-issue voters who can give them an edge in November. Here's the problem. You get to November, the party that does not control the White House typically has a midterm advantage. So what the party that controls the White House has to do is maximize the turnout of its voters. And in 2022, people think, oh, it was a disaster for the Republicans. I was looking at the results coming in, and it actually looked really good for the GOP. It wound up not being great. But they still won. People missed. They still won. They still actually did better than the Democrats in 2022. But the reason they didn't do as well as they could is because Joe Biden, the incumbent of the White House, maximized the turnout for single-issue Democratic voters. And one of the single-issue Democratic voters that they have, that's a new single-issue voter, is Trump. Pro-Trump voters are single-issue voters who turn up to support Donald Trump. They're not coming this November because Trump's not on the ballot. Even though Trump wants to hypothetically be on the ballot, he's not legally on the ballot, so these voters aren't going to show up. But the anti-Trump voters, they are single-issue voters. They want to stop Trump, and anyone who helps Trump, they will show up in November. It's what Joe Biden and the Democrats understood in 2022, that there was a set of voters who were single issue on the matter of Donald Trump, and they would do anything they can to stop Trump and anyone who might advance Trump. And they showed up in droves in 2022 and helped the Democrats mitigate their losses. The Republicans need to do the same this November. And one of the most reliable groups of single issue voters Republicans could call on are Second Amendment voters. And the problem for the GOP right now is after Alex Preddy's death, you had Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and other members of the administration and the president himself come out and denounce gun ownership. The president talking about you shouldn't bring a gun. You shouldn't bring a gun to a protest. Hey, you have a legal right to. And the Second Amendment people will be the first out there to tell you they've got a right to carry a gun wherever they want. And now yesterday on Fox News, Judge Janine, now the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia.
And you bring a gun into the district, you mark my words, you're going to jail. I don't care if you have a license in another district, and I don't care if you're a law-abiding gun owner somewhere else. You bring a gun into this district, count on going to jail, and hope you get the gun back. And that makes all the difference.
Yeah, it's amazing how accountability works, you know, when people think that if they actually get arrested, they might have to do time and they might be taken off the street. It sort of puts a little different message into people's heads.
Greg Steube and Andrew Clyde, two members of Congress, have both tweeted this morning, essentially, come and get it, Judge Janine. Greg Steube, the congressman, he tweeted out that I carry a gun into the District of Columbia every single day. I have a permit. You come get it. Judge Janine, you heard her say, I don't care if you have a permit in another state. You can't bring it into the district. I will arrest you. You have Republican members of Congress saying, come and try. Y'all, I don't care what you think about the public policy. This is the most boneheaded political thing I have seen for some time. Why are the Trump people alienating Second Amendment voters? You need them to turn out in November because people who vote for Donald Trump aren't going to be there because he's not on the ballot. They're also alienating pro-life voters. You know, there was a movement to try to get J.D. Vance uninvited to the March for Life. Didn't work. That they walked it back, but pro-life voters are deeply upset with this administration this go-round. There's a growing chorus of pro-lifers saying that this Trump term, the first Trump term, was the most pro-life, and this Trump term is the most anti-life Republican administration they've seen. The advancement of the abortion pill, the refusal to do anything. I've been told that it's Susie Wiles and Stephen Miller who think that the politics of the abortion pill hurt the GOP. Actually, at this point, not doing anything about it is killing the GOP. I've been told these are names you may not know. Susie Wiles, Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, obviously, and then James Blair, who's the congressional liaison, the legislative guy for the president. And I've been told he understands that the gun issue is bad for the Trump team and the abortion issue is bad for the Trump team, and everybody else in the White House doesn't seem to care, and that guy actually gets the politics of it. I don't know him, never met him, know a lot of members of Congress who don't like him, but he seems to be on point. If it's true what I'm being told, you cannot alienate pro-life and gun rights activists headed into the midterms, or they will not show up. They are single-issue voters. Roughly 25% of the population is Democrat and 25% of the population is Republican. A lot of people don't actually vote in the election. You've got to get 4% of the population with you. 3% are single-issue voters. Some will be for you, some not. Depends on where you stand. You got to persuade 4% of the total population of voters out there to one day I'll take you through the numbers, but basically you got to convince 4% of the people who vote to vote for you in order to win an election. If you alienate pro-lifers and you alienate gun activists, suddenly you're going to have to convince 7% of the population. And your odds go down. This is bad politics for the Trump team. Please, Mr. President, listen to your son. Donald Trump Jr. is one of the biggest Second Amendment advocates in the country. Donald Trump Jr. knows the issue. He knows the voters. He and Eric Trump own guns. In fact, some friends of mine for a company made them guns. They get the Second Amendment. Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr., if you're listening to me, Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr., if you're listening, please do an intervention with your father and his administration on the Second Amendment. You understand Second Amendment voters better than anyone in the administration. You understand if they keep hearing people like Judge Janine and Kash Patel say you can't take guns to protest, you can't bring guns into D.C. even if you have a lawful permit, that those people aren't going to show up for your dad's team in November, and he's going to wind up getting a Democratic majority House and maybe a Democratic Senate to impeach him and scuttle the rest of his agenda. Please, for the love of God, Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump, do an intervention with the Trump administration on the Second Amendment. They cannot afford to be raising alarms with the Second Amendment team. And right now, Gun Owners of America, the NRA, the National Gun Lobby, all of these groups are blasting the Trump administration. Now you got members of Congress attacking him as well on this issue. That's not good. Headed into the midterms, please intervene and fix this.
Hey, I'm Dr. Z, and I'm a neurosurgeon. So that means long hours, early rounds, late nights, and everything in between. And through it all, I wear figs. Because they're built for what I do. Through the chaos, through the hours, and through whatever the day throws at me, they do their job so I can do mine. They're comfortable when it counts and functional when I need them the most. So where do you wear your figs? On shift, on call, on the couch in the break room, listening to this podcast? Wherever it is, they fit right in. And now listeners of this podcast can get 15% off their first order. Just head to wearfigs.com and use code FIGSRX at checkout. That's wearfigs.com, code FIGSRX.
This hour of the program brought to you by Van Allen Golf, ALLEN, vanallengolf.com. You can text golf to 33777. I've got one of their incredible blade putters, and they have definitely, I thought it was hype. It's not, y'all. Definitely, my 5 putts have gone down to 3, put it to you that way. vanallengolf.com. Mentioned this earlier. My friend Kenny sent me a message this morning, and he said, you know, I've come to realize politics is like a long-time TV drama with all the twists and turns, a never-ending show with season after season of narrative structures, multi-character focus, core themes. From month to month, year to year, the characters change and the storylines change, and all of us spectators just choose favorites and wait for a denouement to clear it, and there's no satisfaction. There are plot twists, though. There are lots of plot twists. I got a plot twist for y'all, and Kenny, Jill Biden's ex-husband has been charged with murder of his current wife. Didn't see that one coming, did we? Not since Who Shot JR have we been left in suspense. The plot keeps changing. Jill Biden's ex-husband, William Stevenson, 77, facing first-degree murder charges more than a month after police responded to a domestic dispute at his home. He's believed to have murdered his wife. There's your plot twist of the day in politics. Now, let me tell you about Rinnai and the Rinnai tankless water heater. It is brilliant, and you never run out of hot water with it. You never run, unless your propane tank runs out like I did the other night, and then they came rapidly filled, and we got our hot water right back. It's phenomenal. And if you have natural gas, you never have to worry about that. We don't have natural gas at our house. We use propane. And my kids don't fight over the shower anymore. I don't have to fight with them over the shower. You flip on the faucet, and the hot water comes pouring out, and it's hot water, too. And we got rid of our electric water heater tanks. Our power bill went down. These things are super efficient. There's a factory right up the road from me here in the USA. You can go see these things. They're fantastic. They're reasonably priced. My gosh, go to talkingtankless.com, talkingtankless.com, and get one of these.